Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on high interest loans. I'm really surprised at this little yet extremely important detail that hardly anyone in Nevada knows. And I only say Nevada because I'm speaking specifically, at least in the context of this video, I'm going to speak specifically about a consumer protection that was written into our statutes concerning high interest loans. And heck, even I myself had no idea that this was how high interest loans worked until I worked in collections when I was in college. So I think this video, even though it's specific to Nevada, most likely other states with high interest lenders have very similar, if not identical, consumer protections in place when it comes to high interest loans. And number one, I wanted to let people know about it. And number two, I wanted to let people know about one of the, I don't want to call it loopholes, I guess I'll call it exploits that some of the high interest lenders used to get around it. So how does this consumer protection work? First, I need to sort of bring up what I think most people assume with respect to high interest loans. Most people know that they're usually called like payday loans and that they have extremely high interest rates. Most people know that. Most people assume that they're bad because you're going to have to pay a tremendous amount of interest in a very short amount of time back to the high interest lender. And most people assume that if you don't pay the loan back, the interest becomes astronomical over time. That's the part that's not true. It was really surprising to me. And I found this out when I worked in collections. So apparently in Nevada, the statutes work like this. If you do not pay back the loan within the amount of time that you're supposed to pay it back, the interest drops from the 500, 600, whatever percent it was down to 30%. It's actually based off of some percentage the banking commission puts forth every year. So it can go up or down a little tiny bit, but it's going to be around 30% for 90 days. After 90 days, if you still haven't paid that loan back, the interest drops to 0%. That is one of the things that hardly anyone knows about in Nevada, and I have very strong, strong feeling that most of the other states probably, or maybe even all the other states, the ones that allow high interest loans, do the exact same thing, because it's obvious that if somebody doesn't pay back one of those loans and you keep the percentage at an astronomically high number like that, within a single year, it could be, I don't even want to do the math on it. If someone wants to do the math on it, put it in the comments below just to let people know how bad it could get if you're paying 500% interest on a loan and you didn't pay it back in a year. So yeah, the incentive to high interest lenders to loan out money to people that they're confident will pay them back quickly is very high, because if that person doesn't pay back within 90 days, they're getting 0% interest on that loan. I was surprised at how fair that came off to me. So going into the second part of the video, I have to kind of go into one of the dark sides of how some of the more unscrupulous high interest lenders work. What apparently some of them were doing is they were speaking with high interest debtors that couldn't pay back the loan, and they were telling them, don't worry about that. It's okay that you couldn't pay it back. Why don't you come back in here and we'll give you another loan, and you can use that loan to pay back the first loan that we gave you. If anyone hasn't figured it out just by me describing that, I'll go ahead and explain why they were doing that now. Basically, what they were doing was keeping that really high APR, that really high interest rate going, because it effectively paid off the old loan, and now that they've opened a brand new loan, they can continue to charge that debtor the insanely high 500+% interest rate. I'm trying to remember. I'm not sure if clients that worked, or clients that provided accounts to the collection agency that I worked at were doing that, or if I found it out later in hindsight, or if possibly I even found it out just from some other information outside of the company. But I did eventually find out what some of them were doing, and it's really disappointing, because if only people knew. Couple other things before I end this video. You have the right to rescind the loan in Nevada. I can't remember if it's 72 hours or 48 hours, but if you rescind the loan with that amount of time, you basically get away with paying no interest at all. You just pay back the amount that you were loaned, and that's it. My understanding is that you have to pay it back a certain way because there could be potential issues with like bouncing checks and stuff like that. I think they will only take cash or a money order if you try and rescind the loan. The other interesting little trick is you can pay back the loan early. I think it's within 1 week, 7 days. And if you do so, you only are charged half of the interest. It's another interesting thing. I want to pause here and say I'm not sure if that's consistent with the statutes. That may be just a policy of one of the lenders, but I highly doubt it. Anything that's nice that's coming from any of those lenders is most likely statutory. It's most likely required. The last thing I wanted to mention is they have another statutory protection. It basically discusses payment plans to pay back the loan. It requires the lenders to give you a payment plan. It's very specific as to how the plan has to work. The law is very specific on this. When I worked at the collection agency, we did have some situations where the lender failed to comply with the statute and the judge dismissed the entire case, which means the lender lost all that money for not complying with the portion of the statute that required them to set forth a payment plan. And I think it might have been an issue where they sent the payment plan too late. But anyway, that judge was, in my opinion, pretty amazing because something like that where you allow people to take out tremendously high interest loans has to have a counterweight to it. Otherwise, it can get really nasty really quickly. And my understanding as to how the law is written with high interest loans makes me feel that it's actually very fair and provides a great service to the state. But the fact that some high interest lenders out there flout the law by deceiving their customers, that's something that's really upsetting. In fact, it's been in the news quite a few times. Most of the news media don't understand how they work. None of them talk about any of the protections that I just put in this video. They just explain that people are suffering because of high interest loans, with rare exceptions. And that one of the exceptions is the Nevada Independent, which is covering a lawsuit which is right now in the Supreme Court of Nevada that is specifically addressing this practice that I was talking about, where they're basically trying to get around those limitations that I described. So I'm going to post a link to that article below if anyone wants to read it. If anyone here is in a state that has high interest loans, feel free to post in the comments below. If anyone here is in a state that forbids them, go ahead and post that too. People need to know that. And last but not least, if anyone here is pretty familiar with the protections their state offers, I'm curious to see if they're, for the most part, quite similar to Nevada. I don't know if I made this clear, but these protections do not come from like the Constitution or common law or anything like that. They come from strict statutory authority that was written into law by the legislature. So I don't want to get into anything too technical. I'm just going to go ahead and end this video, and I will see you guys next time.